UK regulators have identified 30 cases of rare blood clot events after administering 18.1 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine so far. The UK regulators' concerns have come barely a day after Europe's medicines regulator once again reiterated its backing of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. The EMA had reaffirmed that no particular age group or gender or even a previously medical history was susceptible to blood clotting after receiving the AstraZeneca shot. The EMA also issued a statement after hearing with a panel of independent external experts on Monday. It said that a causal link with the vaccine is not proven, but it is possible and further analysis is continuing, and reiterated that the vaccine's benefits far outweighed any potential risks. The EMA's reassurance came after several countries like Canada, Germany, France and Spain limited the use of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines after reports of blood clotting after vaccination emerged. EMA said that it had analyzed 62 such cases globally, consulting with regulators in India, Brazil and Britain. 44 of the said cases had occurred in the European Economic Area. Germany's vaccine oversight body said on Tuesday it had registered 31 cases of clotting, which resulted in 9 deaths out of some 2.7 million people who had received the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Joining us on this broadcast now is Doctor and Honorary Associate Professor at University of Leicester in the UK, Dr. Julian Tang, and he's joining us live from Leicester. Doctor, thank you so much for giving us your time. Now, are blood clots a real concern as far as the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine are concerned? Now, there have been a handful of cases, 18.1 million doses have been administered, but even if there are a handful of cases, is that a cause of concern?
Okay, so with any vaccine, you have to balance the risk of the vaccine against the risk of the disease. And at the moment, the balance is to get the vaccine rather than the disease. We're not saying that the vaccine doesn't cause these blood clots. The hyperinflammatory response of both the virus infection and the vaccine response may contribute to this, but the risk is very low compared to risk of complications, similar complications actually, of clotting from the acute infection. And we've seen this before. When we eradicated smallpox in the 1970s, they stopped the vaccination soon after that because the smallpox vaccine has lots of adverse effects as well. When we eradicated polio, we stopped the oral polio vaccine because the oral polio vaccine has some problems because it can revert to wild-type polio, and now we use inactivated polio vaccine in most countries. So this relative risk of disease versus vaccine is nothing new. And whilst there may be a few cases that might be linked to the vaccine, the overall benefit of the vaccine is still far greater than the risk of the vaccine compared to the actual disease itself. So you need to keep this in perspective.
Doctor, what you're saying was actually echoed by the World Health Organization and even the European Medicines Agency, and I'm sure various countries around the world know this, that the benefits outweigh any potential risks. So why did countries around the world suspend the use of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine?
Yeah, so this is a kind of personal thing, because if you are otherwise healthy and you have something injected into you that may make you sick, people may think, well, okay, I'm better off without that, because they may not get infected, or they may get very mild infection if they risk getting infected with the actual disease itself. If people could know, I will get those complications out of, 1 in a million cases of vaccination, then of course you may choose not to take the vaccine and get the disease yourself. But we don't know this. No one can say for definite that I, Julian Tang, will get a sinus venous thrombosis if I take the AstraZeneca vaccine. In fact, I've had the vaccine and I didn't get any complications like that, but I've also had a national infection as well. So without that absolute knowledge, you have to go by a kind of population probability, and the population probability is still that the vaccine is far safer than getting the virus infection itself, and that's really the objective way of looking at this. But for individuals, that population reasoning may not work because they may over-perceive the risk to themselves. And to be honest, if you look at the AstraZeneca vaccine trials, if people are worried about this, they can just take 2 paracetamol before the AstraZeneca jab, which is what I did. Okay, so the clinical trials include a paracetamol arm, take 2 paracetamol adult dose 2 hours before you take the vaccine, and hopefully any of these hyperinflammatory adverse effects will not be a problem. And in fact, they use that in the clinical trials. It's nothing out of the clinical trial that I'm suggesting.
So 30 cases out of 18.1 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines administered in the UK so far, but some countries in Europe, other countries around the world, in Australia, there have been concerns over blood clots. You say the risk is very low, so does the WHO and the EU medicines regulator, but the suspension of this vaccine, or a temporary suspension of this vaccine by various European countries especially, is that risking harming the people's faith in any vaccine, not just the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, because the world needs people to go out and get vaccinated against COVID?
Yeah, so in a normal situation, if there's a drug that causes an adverse effect, you might stop the prescription of that drug for a time whilst you investigate the reasons for that. But a drug treating a normal condition, which may not be infectious, you can afford to wait, and there may be alternative drugs that you can use. At the moment, there are alternative vaccines you can use, but they're not in good supply. So you have to weigh the benefits of stopping the vaccination program versus getting natural infection, versus continuing the vaccination program and getting a very low level of these adverse complications. And some of those people may be predisposed to getting those clotting complications, regardless of any particular relation to the actual vaccine itself. I think that, again, if you have an ongoing pandemic, rolling out the vaccination program is still more protective of the general population than halting it to investigate very few cases of a potential complication link. But again, the individual jurisdictions have to take whatever action they feel is necessary to reassure their population. And yes, if you stop the rollout of the vaccine, that confidence in the vaccine may be eroded to some extent.
Dr. Julian Tang, thank you so much for joining us from Leicester for your views on this global story. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.